I want to start by telling you something true about the studio. I loved it. I know that is not the expected beginning of a story like this one. The expected beginning involves the protagonist suffering in a small space, yearning for better, humiliated by the gap between where she lives and where she thought she would be. That is a real story, and I am not dismissing it. But it is not mine. My studio was 412 square feet on the third floor of a building in a neighborhood I had chosen deliberately, which looked northwest, which meant the afternoon light came in at an angle in winter that made the whole room go warm and gold for about 40 minutes every day around 4 o'clock. I had learned this on my second week there, and I had arranged my furniture around it. My desk faced the window. My reading chair was in the corner where the light pooled longest. The studio had one significant limitation, which was that when I developed prints, I am a photographer, I will explain in a moment. I had to use the bathroom as a darkroom, taping black fabric over the window with the specific patience of a person who has done this enough times to do it well. My enlarger lived in the closet. My chemicals were stored under the bathroom sink in the particular chemical order that prevented interaction. 412 square feet, organized with the precision of someone who understood that small spaces reward careful thinking and punish casual accumulation. I had lived there for 4 years when my mother came to visit. I had 4 years of love for that apartment. What my mother had when she walked in was 4 minutes of looking around before she said what she said. She came in October, which should have been a safe month. The light was beautiful in October. The neighborhood was colorful. The apartment was at its most defensible. I had cleaned it the day before with the specific thoroughness of someone preparing a space to be judged. Not because I believed the cleaning would change the judgment, but because I had been raised by a woman who inspected surfaces, and I had internalized the inspection even when I disagreed with its premise. She arrived at noon. She stood in the doorway for a moment before entering, which was the gesture of someone making a first assessment. Then she came in, set her bag on the kitchen counter, the kitchen and the living room being the same room, which I had arranged to feel intentional rather than constrained, and looked around. Her expression did the thing expressions do when a person has already decided what they think and is now simply confirming it. She said, "It's very small," not cruelly. My mother was not a cruel woman. She was a woman who believed that honesty was a form of care and that softening the truth was a disrespect. This was a genuine aspect of her character that I had spent 32 years in relationship with. And what I can tell you about it is that it was real, and it was also sometimes the thing she used when what she actually wanted to say was something else. "I know," I said. "I like it." She walked to the window. She looked at the view, which was the street and the building across the street and a sliver of sky. She looked back at the room. "Chisholm," she said, "you are 32 years old." "Yes," I said. "Your cousin Adiz has 3 bedrooms. Adiz has a husband and 2 children," I said. "The bedrooms are for them." She made a sound that was not quite a response. She moved to the small table where I ate and where I also worked when I was not at my desk, which was a round table I had found at an estate sale and refinished myself, which was one of the things I was most quietly proud of in the apartment. "You'll rent forever," she said. "At this rate." Not predicted as a possibility, stated as a conclusion. The rate and its inevitable destination, assessed in 4 minutes. "Maybe," I said. She looked at me. "That doesn't worry you?" "Not the way it worries you," I said. We ate the lunch I had made. We talked about other things. She left at 3:30, before the good light, which meant she never saw the apartment the way I saw it every afternoon at 4. I thought about that for a while after she left. I photograph the ocean. More specifically, I photograph what lives in it, the underwater world that most people experience through documentaries or aquariums or the occasional snorkeling trip, which is to say not really, which is to say they have seen a few minutes of curated brightness through a mask and called it acquaintance. I photograph it the way you photograph something when it has been the organizing subject of your life for 15 years, and you have learned to move in it the way you move in a language you have finally stopped translating and simply think in. I started diving at 17. I bought my first underwater housing at 20 with money from 3 part-time jobs and a tax refund, and a loan I paid back over 18 months. I started selling prints at 23, small at first, art fairs and online shops, the kind of revenue that supplements rather than sustains. The work changed when I went deep. Not literally deep. I am a technical diver, but the work that changed my trajectory was in shallow water, in a specific reef system off the coast of a small island I had been visiting for 3 years. I had been documenting a colony of something. I will be specific without being tedious. A species of coral that had been considered locally extinct for 40 years and that I had found recovering in an area that had been protected from boat traffic. I documented it across 8 months of quarterly visits. I wrote careful notes. I talked to a marine biologist at a university who confirmed what I was seeing. The paper that came out of that collaboration mentioned my photographs. The photographs were reproduced in the journal. The journal article was picked up by 3 science news outlets, and then by one very large general publication that ran the images across 2 pages with my name attached. My inbox changed overnight. Not fame, nothing like that, but the specific attention of people who commission and license underwater photography for documentary work, for educational materials, for corporate communications around ocean conservation, for the NGOs and foundations and film companies that needed images of the ocean that were true rather than stock. I licensed work. I was hired for projects. I was paid for expertise rather than just images, which is a different and more durable income category. I kept living in the studio, not because I couldn't afford better. By year 3 of the post paperwork, I could have afforded better, but because I had looked at the upgrade and what it would cost me in time and in the specific attention I gave to where money went, and I had decided that the studio was correct and the money had a better destination. I had been saving for the destination for 7 years. My mother did not know about the saving. I had not hidden it from her actively. I had simply not offered it, the way you don't offer information to someone who has demonstrated they will use it to recalibrate their assessment of you and whether you are making sensible choices, because their assessment of sensible and your assessment of sensible diverge at the root. She thought I was renting forever. I was making a cash offer on a beach house. Slowly. That is the first answer and the truest one. Slowly, over 7 years, with a discipline that I would not describe as deprivation because I have never experienced frugality as deprivation. I experience it as precision, the same precision I bring to an underwater composition, the practice of deciding what belongs in the frame and what doesn't. The money came from the licensing, from the commissions, from a book project that I had been contracted for at 30 that paid in 2 installments, and both of which I directed to the account I had opened specifically and only for this purpose at 28. The account had one rule: nothing left it except for the purchase. Not for equipment, which had its own fund. Not for travel, which was mostly covered by the projects I traveled for. Not for emergencies, which had their own smaller fund, sitting elsewhere, boring and responsible and sufficient. Just the purchase account. Building. I had looked at properties for 3 years before I found the right one. Not looking the way people look when they are dreaming, actually looking with a spreadsheet with a price range I updated annually as the account grew, with specific criteria I had worked out by asking myself a simple question every time I saw a property that attracted me. Will I be able to work here? The work requires proximity to water, not glamorous oceanfront. I did not need glamour. I needed access. A reasonable drive to a boat launch. A reasonable relationship with the light at certain hours. A space where I could process and store equipment properly. The house I found was not the biggest or the most dramatic. It was a cedar-sided house on a quiet road, 3 minutes from a public boat launch, with a garage that could become a proper studio, with a back porch that faced the tree line rather than the water, which meant privacy, which meant mornings with coffee without the feeling of being observed, and with a price that, on the day the listing went up, was within $12,000 of what I had accumulated in the purchase account. I called my real estate agent from the deck of a boat. I made the offer that afternoon. The sellers accepted in 48 hours. I called no one in my family for 2 weeks, not to be secretive. There is nothing secretive about buying a house. But the 2 weeks between the accepted offer and the closing were weeks I wanted to hold carefully, to be sure of before they were known by people whose certainty I did not share. I told my mother on the day I had the keys. I called her and told her I wanted to show her something. I told her to be ready at 10 on Saturday. I did not tell her what I was showing her. She asked, and I said it was a surprise, and she said she didn't like surprises, and I said I thought she would like this one. She was ready at 10, which was a form of love she expressed reliably, whatever her thoughts. She was ready. The drive was 2 hours and 20 minutes. We talked in the way we talked on long drives, more easily than in stationary spaces, because the shared direction of attention, the road ahead rather than each other's faces, loosened something. She told me about her neighbor's situation. I told her about a project I had just finished, a 3-week assignment in the Pacific that I gave her more detail about than I usually offered. She asked questions, more than usual. I noticed this. Something in the car's moving atmosphere had made her curious in a different register than she usually brought to conversations about my work. We turned off the main road at the 2-hour mark. The road narrowed. The trees thickened on both sides. The quality of the light changed the way it changes when you get close to water. Not visible yet, but present, the air doing something specific. My mother looked out the window. "Where are we going?" she said. "Almost there," I said. The cedar-sided house came into view. I pulled into the driveway and put the car in park, and I sat for a moment looking at the cedar that had gone silver in the salt air over the years, at the porch, at the garage that I was already measuring in my mind for what it would become. I had been here 3 times, the showing, the inspection, the closing, and each time it had looked right. It looked right now. My mother was looking at it. "Whose house is this?" she said. I reached into my bag. I took out the keys. I held them for a moment. The weight of them, the specific weight of something that means what this meant. And then I looked at my mother. "Mine," I said. "I bought it last week. I have thought about what to call what her face did. Stare is the word that fits the external fact of it. Her eyes on the house, then on the keys, then on my face, then back to the house, in the silence of someone whose processing has outrun their available responses. But stare is not quite right for what was in it. What was in it was more layered than a stare. There was surprise. Yes, genuine, unmanaged surprise, the kind that arrives before composure can organize itself. There was something that looked like recalibration, the rapid, visible adjusting that happens when new information requires a new map. And underneath both of those, something that I want to be honest about because honesty is the only reason to tell a story like this. There was something that looked like recognition. Not of the house, of me, of the specific person I had been in the 412 square feet she had assessed in 4 minutes and found insufficient, seen now in a different context, assessed again, the assessment arriving at something different. She did not speak for a long moment. Then she said, "Cash." "Cash," I said. "You saved this." "For 7 years," I said. She looked at the house again, at the cedar, at the porch. "You never told me," she said. "No," I said. "Why not?" I thought about how to answer this honestly without making the honesty a wound. "Because I needed to build it without the conversations," I said. "Not because the conversations were wrong. Because I needed the silence of it. I needed to do it in the quiet." She absorbed this. "The studio," she said. "Yes," I said. "You were saving the whole time." "The whole time," I said. Something moved across her face that I did not rush to identify. "Will you show me inside?" she said. I got out of the car. I walked to the front door. I unlocked it. And then I did the thing I had been thinking about on the drive, the thing I had decided in the 2 weeks between the accepted offer. And this Saturday, I turned and I held out the keys. Not all of them. A copy. The one I had made specifically a week ago in the hardware store 2 blocks from the studio, while thinking about what it meant to invite someone into something you had built entirely by yourself. She looked at the key in my hand. "What is this?" "A key," I said. "So you can come when you want. This is close enough that a weekend is possible. The back bedroom faces the tree line. It's quiet." She took the key slowly. She held it in her palm the way my father had taught me to hold a coin in a different story, in a different family, with the specific weight of a thing that is real. "You didn't have to," she said. "I know," I said. "That's why I wanted to." The house was empty. I had been deliberate about this. I had not moved in yet, had wanted the first visit with my mother to be in the open, uncluttered space of it, the walls and the light and the structure before my choices filled it. She walked through it the way she walked through things that mattered to her, slowly touching the door frames, looking at the ceilings, opening the closet in the back bedroom, and closing it again. She stood in the kitchen and looked at the window above the sink, which faced north, which meant even light, good for work. And she said, "Good window." "Yes," I said. She went out to the back porch. I watched her stand there, looking at the tree line in the October morning, the specific quality of coastal October light that is different from city October light, cleaner, colder, with a clarity that city light doesn't have. I stood in the doorway. "I can hear the water," she said. "You can't see it from here, but it's close," I said. 3 minutes to the boat launch." She was quiet. "I said you would rent forever." She said, "Yes." I was wrong about the forever part. "Yes," I said. "I was also," she paused, "the apartment. I was not seeing it the way you saw it." This was, for my mother, a significant admission. Not an apology. My mother did not use the word sorry easily or often, which I had made my peace with across years of understanding that people's vocabulary of accountability is limited by what they were given and what they practiced. But this was the thing that sat in the place where sorry would go, said in the honest register she used when she meant what she was saying. "I know," I said. "You were happy there." "I was," I said. "I am. I'll still keep it for a while. I need the city access for certain projects. This is for the work, for the water." She turned from the tree line and looked at me. "You thought this through," she said. "For 7 years," I said. She looked at the key in her hand again. "Your father would have done something like this," she said. My father had died when I was 11, a presence in our history that she referenced occasionally, carefully, with the specific economy of someone who had learned to carry grief without spilling it. He thought long. "You've told me that," I said. "He would have been—" She stopped. She pressed her lips together for a moment. "He would have come to see it." "I know," I said. We stood on the back porch in the October morning, and we let that be what it was, the specific quiet of two people sharing the weight of an absence, the man who thought long and never saw this, and the daughter who thought long and got here and wishes he had. We stayed for 3 hours. We ate sandwiches I had brought in a bag, sitting on the back porch because there was no furniture yet, leaning against the railing with the tree line in front of us and the sound of the water somewhere beyond it. We talked about the house, what it would become, the studio in the garage, the bedroom I was going to set up first, the garden I had no plans for yet, but was thinking about. My mother had opinions about the garden. This was the thing that moved me most, I think, on the drive home. Not the stare at the keys. Not the admission about the apartment. The opinions about the garden, delivered with the specific enthusiasm she reserved for things she cared about sun exposure and soil type, and what grew well in salt air, and what didn't. The opinions of a woman who had, in the 412 square feet, found nothing to invest her attention in, and who, given a patch of coastal land and the implicit invitation to imagine something in it, had immediately and entirely arrived. I drove and she talked about the garden, and I let her talk without managing it, without the abbreviation I sometimes applied to conversations with her, to keep them from becoming a survey of my shortcomings. She was not surveying shortcomings. She was planning a garden for a beach house her daughter had bought. I had not known this version of the conversation was available. Perhaps it had always been available. Perhaps I had not created the conditions for it. Perhaps she had not known how to arrive at it without the specific coordinates of a house with a back porch and a north-facing kitchen window, and a patch of land that needed thinking about. I thought about that for the remainder of the drive. I kept it for 14 months. I used it exactly as I had described. The city access, the projects that required proximity to certain clients and institutions, the habit of the afternoon light at 4. I used it on the weeks I was not at the house, which in the first year was more weeks than I expected because the work I had been doing accelerated in ways I had not anticipated, and the commissions and the collaborations that came out of the beach house's proximity to the water were taking longer to reach full momentum than I had expected. I gave it up on a Thursday in December when I was ready, not with drama. I cleaned it with the same thorough patience I had brought to it for 4 years. I took the black fabric off the bathroom window for the last time and let the winter light in, the flat December light that was different from the October warmth, but had its own quality, honest, and even the light of a month that doesn't try to be beautiful, and sometimes is anyway. I stood in the empty apartment for a while before I left. I thought about what it had been, the years of care I had put into it, and the years of saving I had done inside it. The enlarger in the closet, the round table from the estate sale, the 40 minutes of gold light at 4. It had been enough. It had been, for those 4 years, exactly enough. Not a waiting room, not a lesser version of something better. Its own complete thing. The right space for the work I was doing, and the saving I was doing, and the life I was living inside it. I had always known this. I had just occasionally needed to remember it when my mother visited. I left the key on the kitchen counter. I drove to the house. My mother came to the beach house in March. Her first overnight visit. She had come for day trips twice since October, most recently to begin actual work on the section of the garden she had claimed as her project. She arrived on a Saturday afternoon with a bag and a flat of seedlings wrapped in newspaper and very specific instructions for the person at the garden center who had, apparently, tried to upsell her on something she did not need. I had the back bedroom ready, the one that faced the tree line. She put her seedlings in the garage in the section I had left clear for them. She made tea in the kitchen. She sat at the table I had bought for the house, a long, plain wooden one, second-hand again, because I have never stopped believing in second-hand tables, and she looked out the north-facing window, and she drank her tea. Sunday morning she was up before me. I came downstairs at 7 to find her already outside, in the cold, in the garden section, doing something with a hand tool and a focused expression that I recognized from her kitchen, the expression she wore when she was doing a thing she understood and cared about. I made coffee. I brought a cup out to her. She took it without stopping what she was doing. I stood beside her and looked at what was beginning to take shape in the cold morning soil. "It'll come in late May," she said. "Maybe June. The salt slows things." "I can wait," I said. "You're good at that," she said. She said it without looking up, with the matter-of-fact quality she used for observations rather than compliments, simply noting a thing that was true. I was good at waiting. 7 years of a purchase account, 4 years of a studio, 3 years of looking at properties before the right one, the long patience of someone who understood that things grew at their own rate, and that the work in the meantime was to build conditions, not to hurry outcomes. "I learned it somewhere," I said. She looked up at that. I nodded toward the house, toward the kitchen where she had taught me to cook, in her kitchen, in the house I grew up in, toward the practical, unsentimental education she had given me, without calling it an education, in patience, in quality, in the difference between what something cost and what it was worth. She looked at me for a moment. Then she looked back at her seedlings. "Don't be sentimental," she said, which is what she said when something had moved her, and she did not want to show it entirely. "Okay," I said. I drank my coffee. She worked her garden. The water was somewhere beyond the trees, present without being visible, doing what it always did. Which was enough. More than enough. The best kind of enough there is.